YN arrived at her apartment. After taking a shower, she lay in her bed. She had been thinking about that man all evening, even when she was in the shower. Strangely, she couldn't stop. Maybe it was because of his ever so striking appearance? The probability was high. YN couldn't help but think that he wasn't real as she remembered every features of his face very clearly in her head. As she lay there, thinking about him, her eyes finally drifted close. The next thing she knew, the sun was already streaming through her windows. She woke and did her usual routine, arranged her bed, prepared her breakfast, and after eating she drove back to the city. YN headed to a coffee shop near her apartment. She couldn't tell Kara last night at party as Kara was so drunk, so YN messaged her this morning that she wanted to talk to her about something, so they planned to meet at this shop. How are you? You were pretty drunk last night. YN was looking at Kara with a raised brow. Kara, do I look that bad? Yes, YN replied. Don't lie, YN. I made sure that my eye bags are perfectly covered. Kara laughed and you could only chuckle. Kara, so? What's that you want to talk to me? She asked you as she sipped on her coffee, letting out a deep sigh. YN pressed her lips tightly before she looked at her friend. I have found a man, YN said, and Kara choked. Careful, Kara. Cough, what did you say? You found a man? You? Kara looked like she heard something so unbelievable. Calm down, don't be too loud, YN said. Oh my god, YN, how can I be calm right now? You, my ever so innocent YN, finally found a man you like, Kara said excitedly. YN replied, well, I still can't say if I like him, but he is the man I've been looking for and he's the one I want. Wow, this is unbelievable. Who is he? Who is the man that caught my love? YN eyes? Huh? Kara was so excited. Actually, I failed to get his name. All I know is that his surname is Mr. Jeon, YN responded. Kara was disappointed not knowing the man's name. YN looked up to her friend. Looking serious, she told, I want him to be my boyfriend. For a while, Kara gaped at her, but the moment she recovered, a huge bright smile curved up on her face as she replied, okay. That's my girl, you are finally hearing my advice. My innocent bun finally learned to become daring. YN stared at her friend who is looking so excited and happy, but she couldn't tell her friend that she wasn't trying to make him fall for her at all. She also didn't say anything negative about the man. She didn't tell her that he was heartless and cold, that he told her he didn't like her, and, most importantly, that the man was dangerous because YN knew that if Kara found out what kind of man she chose, she would surely go against it. When she got to her flat, it was already dark. She prepared and ate her dinner. Once in her room, YN took out her phone and dialed the number. She wanted to send him a message but didn't know what to ask. Should she brazenly ask for the man's address? No, that would be too creepy. Then how would she meet him? Before she knew it, YN had drifted off to sleep without even completing her goal for the night. In the end, she didn't even send him a single message. After 1 week, YN is having difficulty all these days. She couldn't even focus on her work. The man not even contacted her all these days. At night, YN was unable to sleep that night. Her mind was completely occupied by that man. YN was excited to call Kara, but she had to wait for man's message first. She had to know when they would meet again, so YN could prepare for it. However, as time went by, there was not a single ding from her phone to indicate that she had received a message, and she started to feel unsettled. She started typing on her phone, intending to send him a message, but it was harder than she thought. She didn't know how to start the conversation. She had never done anything like this before. Should she call him? What should she say? YN spent an hour just rolling on her bed, holding her phone tightly and glancing at it every other second, trying to make a decision. She tried to recall the first messages she used received from the boys during her college days. She finally realized that almost all of them started with simple hi. She started to type the word hi in her phone. Unfortunately, she couldn't send it. She personally thought that this particular word is little plain and boring. Would he even reply if she just sent this singular word? YN signed in frustration. In the end, YN simply sent him a goodnight emoji, a white fluffy puppy yawning as it fall asleep on a white fluffy pillow, and then she followed suit and fell into a dreamless sleep. Next morning, when YN opened her eyes, the first thing she did was immediately look for her phone. Her eyes widened when she saw that she received a message from him. Her heart raced in nervousness. Oh God! YN, why are you getting nervous so early in the morning? Mr. Jeon, I will send someone to pick you up on evening. Send me a message beforehand if you change your mind. YN signed and dropped his shoulder. It seems like he was still intended to give her enough time to change her mind. YN, thinking. Too bad, Mr. Jeon, but this lady here has decided I'm not changing my mind anymore. Evening, at a certain 7-star hotel. A large, magnificent ballroom had been meticulously set up for what seemed to be very important and very high-class event. The chandeliers that dangled from the ceiling provided little sparkles of light from one end of the room to the other, giving the room a feeling of being under a bright, starry night sky. Many round tables were dotted around the room, tastefully with a red or gold motif, colors of which represented wealth. Prosperity is good fortune. YN entered the hotel with Mr. Jeon's assistant. YN's eyes became as wide as saucers as her jaw dropped in awe by seeing decoration and beautiful ball. As she was standing inside the hall and was about to look for a certain handsome creature, when she felt a strong presence behind her. Her skin tingled. She immediately knew that she didn't need to look for him anymore. A large and smooth hand landed on her shoulder as he leaned in to whisper in her ear. May I have a dance? His deep, sexy, masculine voice sent shivers down her spine, and before she could react, Mr. Jeon had already took her hand and guided her towards the dance floor, where a few other couples were also dancing. He took one of her hands and smoothly placed it on his lower back and held the other one in his hand. He then slipped his arm behind her and pulled her close to him, leaving no gap between their bodies. YN's brain had stopped functioning at this point, and all she could do was follow his lead. Now that she was this close to him, and finally had the chance to study his face, his nose, his lips, his jaw, and every contour of his face was just perfect. There was no other word to describe it. As they were talking, the music got stopped, causing all couples to come down off the stage. Jungkook took into near to their seat, then he suddenly spoke. "What are you thinking?" In somehow quickly regained her composure as she responded, "I didn't expect that you would bring me to a party like this." "Don't you like it?" he asked. Replied, "I wouldn't say that, but this is my first time I am attending party in this 7-star hotel, so I'm bit overwhelmed," she confessed, and he gave her a soft, enchanting smile, flashing a set of perfect, ultra-white teeth. "You find the party overwhelming, not me?" he taunted, but seemingly quite amused before his mood shifted yet again. "Tell me about yourself," he added now in serious tone. "I am an orphan. My parents died in car accident when I was young. Then one orphanage took me into their care," replied. "Are you a student?" Jungkook asked. Replied, "No, I graduated last year. Now I am working as fashion designer." Before the Jungkook could ask another question, was quick to beat him this time and asked him a question. "Mr. Jeon, what's your full name?" "Jungkook." Jungkook," he replied calmly. Murmured his name. Stated, "I need to use the restroom. I'll go and come." Jungkook nodded his head. After using restroom, washed her hands and opened the door of restroom to step out. Suddenly, the creepy man stepped forward, blocking her way out as he entered the restroom. Then he pushed her inside one of the cubicles and locked it behind him. "Who are you? What are you doing?" Screamed. "Baby, don't shout. I promise to make you feel good," the man whispered sinister as his grip on her shoulders tightened. "Let me go. Please let me go. I don't want this." Screamed and pleaded in fear. But the man didn't let her go. "Arg, let me go. Jungkook, help me." Didn't know why she called him, but she knew he wouldn't hear her. The man reacted and was just about to cover her mouth when he heard a loud bang behind him. The man turned around, but his eyes nearly came out of his sockets because the locked cubicle door behind him was no longer there. "What the hell?" Before he could finish his words, he was suddenly yanked backwards, and he felt himself being slammed on the cold, hard wall. The man's eyes lost his focus as his head hit the wall with a hard thud. He felt something warm and sticky start rolling down the back of his head, and he realized that was his blood dripping down to the floor. Then he felt a large, strong hand grab his neck as he was lifted up on the wall. He scratched at the arm that held him, but it was futile. The man's arms were as solid as steel, effortlessly immobilizing him, as if he was just some hand in his grasp. "Did you touch her?" Jungkook asked the man, his voice restrained, murderous range. The voice sounded like a call of death, his survival that instincts immediately kicked in. "No, no," the man choked out. "You came before." The Jungkook's grip tightened, stopping man's words, but he persevered. He didn't want to die. Just her shoulders." I didn't. Just her shoulder." Jungkook loosened his grip and the man dropped into a slump on the ground, heaving for air. Jungkook turned to look at the girl behind him standing there, frozen as her eyes looked back at him. He could see a mixture of emotions in them: fear, shock, confusion, and he tore his gaze away from them as he quickly searched her body for any bruises or scratches which would indicate that she had been physically hurt. Then he leaned in and whispered in her ear, his voice cold and emotionless. "YN, this is just a little taste of hell. I told you, you can't handle it." YN shivered as her shoulders started to shake. His ice-cold voice woke her up from her frozen shock and her body started to react. Everything happened so fast that she couldn't process what was happening. When she heard Jungkook talking to her, she came back to her senses. She felt shocked and confused and a whole lot of other emotions as she stared at him. Her brain stopped functioning again as one thought ran through her mind like a broken record: Jungkook is here and he saved me from that man. Jungkook saw the horror written all over her face and he turned away as he thought that the girl was now definitely too scared to even look at him. Good. She should be scared, he thought heartlessly. He moved to leave her be, but before he could even take a step, he felt her frail arms wrap around his waist as she hugged him from behind. He felt her head settle on his back and his shirt dampen from her hot tears. He could also feel her whole body trembling from the shock of this experience. Jungkook's eyes turned wide at the unexpected turn of events. He had deliberately shown her the kind of violence he was capable of, the kind of hell he lived in, so why? Why was this little girl still? She should be terrified of him. She should be running as far away from him as she could. That was what any normal, sane person would do. Jungkook turned around to face her just in time to catch her before she fell to the floor. It seemed that she had fainted. After some time, YN finally woke up and found that she was lying inside a car. Her head throbbed in pain, her mouth was dry and her vision was a bit blurry. She blinked a few more times to get a clearer picture of her situation, and she began to remember the things that happened before she passed out. She felt her hands tremble a little from the memory, but when she saw the silhouette of that perfect figure sitting on the driver's seat, her increasing panic and loud heartbeat accelerating down. The man was leaning his head on the headrest with his eyes closed. She would never get used to seeing the perfection of his face. He was like a jellyfish, beautifully emitting its own light under the dark ocean, but if you touched it, you'd be poisoned. And Vine had the strongest desire to touch this beautiful, mysterious jellyfish, even knowing that it might lead to certain death. Suddenly, the man spoke, but his eyes still closed. "Miss Kong, I hope you already learned your lesson. Never attempt this again. I'm telling you one more time, someone like you doesn't belong in my world. You belong in your own peaceful paradise," he said, still not throwing her a glance. Vine felt the urge to cry. She didn't understand. All she wanted was to fall in love. All she wanted was to experience saying those 3 words, "love you" to the man she loved, and to know how that would feel. Was that really too much to ask? That was all she wanted, her only wish, so why can't things just go smoothly, as she wished? Should she really give up? Go home and stay there. YN, that's where you belong. You've seen the outside world and there is nothing good out there, Jungkook added, and YN looked away. You're right, the world is not always a nice place. It can be scary, she trailed off. Her voice was weak, almost whisper, sadness and pain could be heard in her voice, but I don't agree with you that there's nothing good out there. Jungkook, she called him. Jungkook opened his eyes and looked at her. I think that there is something good out there. She lifted her hand and gently poked the man's cheek and said, "It's you." "YN, you don't know what you're saying," he added, moving closer to her. As his fingertips touched her jaw, his eyes flashed with ice-cold fire once more. "Didn't you see how much more dangerous I am on that man? I have and can still do far more worse things than that. I have done things you can't even imagine. YN, believe that. But you saved me today. That shows there is good in you, Jungkook. Please give me a chance, Jungkook," YN pleaded him. "Why me, YN?" Jungkook asked her. "Because you're the most handsome man I have ever seen," YN replied. "What a stubborn little girl," Jungkook replied softly and sighed. "Okay, I'll give you 1 month time, YN. Let's see what you gonna do." "Thank you, Jungkook. Thank you so much," YN happily replied. "Don't come crying to me afterwards," Jungkook said. "No, I won't do that," YN replied. Jungkook replied, "Okay, tell me your address. I will drop you to your home."